Now we want to get you details on another big international headline. A partnership is growing between an axis of powers which see the US and other Western allies as an enemy. We're talking about China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, a loose alliance known as CRINC. They've become much closer during the ongoing war in Ukraine.
The president said direct talks between the U.S. and Iran about Iran's nuclear program will begin on Saturday. President Trump cautioned Iran will be in, quote, great danger if talks to stop its nuclear program are unsuccessful.
Getting to be very dangerous territory, and hopefully those talks will be successful, and I think it would be in Iran's best interest if they are successful.
Netanyahu says he is working with the U.S. on another deal to secure the release of more hostages. Gaza's health ministry says Israel's military has killed over 50,000 Palestinians.
But that's very unlikely to be seen in Iran. All the experts, and including news reports coming out of Iran, is that's very unlikely that Iran would dismantle their nuclear program. Experts have said that they're pretty much ready to use nuclear energy for a nuclear bomb. And they've already kind of held that. It's almost like not turning on the keys, not manufacturing one, or if they do, it's deep in the bunkers. There's been a military buildup in the region, especially on this island called Diego Garcia, that many people have never heard about but are hearing recently since the attacks on the Houthis by the U.S. Diego Garcia is in the Indian Ocean. And we have, the U.S. does B-2 bombers there. They've satellite imagery have counted about 6. There are THAAD battery missiles in Israel, defensive missile program to keep missiles from flying into Iran. So all these movements happening in case.
A recent article in a Wall Street Journal explores this deepening military and economic tie between the four nations. And one of the authors of that piece, Korea Bureau Chief Timothy Martin, joins us now from Seoul with more. Good morning to you, Tim. CRINC might be a new term for many of our viewers, but help us understand why it's important, especially now.
CRINC might have a funny ring to it, but I guarantee you, to U.S. and Western officials, this is no laughing matter. Short for China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. These are 4 of the most sanctioned countries that have ever existed. And what we've seen after the Ukraine war is increasing partnership, collaboration, collusion, and they're figuring out ways how to get around sanctions, to cooperate, work with one another in ways that the U.S. and the West cannot touch.
President Trump threatened new tariffs on China Monday, even as Wall Street continues to slide. The development comes as Israel's prime minister becomes the first foreign leader to visit the White House since the president announced reciprocal tariffs.
The meeting came as the volatility on Wall Street continues, but President Trump is doubling down on his trade policy, saying on social media that if China does not withdraw its 34% retaliatory tariffs by tomorrow, the U.S. will impose 50% additional tariffs on China.
We've been ripped off and taken advantage of by many countries over the years, and can't do it anymore.
Investment bank Goldman Sachs issued a new forecast saying a recession has become more likely, even if Trump reverses course. Lawmakers are also sounding the alarm on the potential impact of tariffs as they explore bipartisan ways to reassert congressional control over trade policy.
I urge the president to back off before it's too late.
President Trump, who hosted the World Series champion LA Dodgers Monday, says he spoke with Japan's prime minister ahead of reciprocal tariffs taking effect Wednesday. White House officials say more than 50 countries have reached out to the president to try to negotiate his sweeping tariff policy.
And of course, we also discussed Iran. Look, we're both united in the goal that Iran does not ever get nuclear weapons. If it could be done diplomatically in a full way, the way it was done in Libya, I think that would be a good thing. But whatever happens, we have to make sure that Iran does not have nuclear weapons. That's the end of my speech.
Mr. President, we're having direct talks with. Wait. We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with if they can avoid it. So we're going to see if we can avoid it. But it's getting to be very dangerous territory. And hopefully those talks will be successful. And I think it would be in Iran's best interest if they are successful. We hope that's going to happen.
But one other thing on the agenda will be the topic of Iran. President Trump says Iran needs to negotiate on the issue of its nuclear program or risk being bombed, with President Trump going so far as to write to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, about the issue. Now, Iran has rejected that and it's gone a step further, warning some other countries in the region that if they are involved in any mission by the United States to bomb the country, they will face the consequences. So, for example, if they were to allow US fighter jets and bombers to use military bases in their countries, they will be seen as undertaking and carrying out an act of hostility against Iran. One of the real issues here, and one of the things to keep an eye on, will be the behaviour of Israel, with many suggesting that Benjamin Netanyahu may go it alone if he sees or thinks that there is not enough progress being made on any negotiations between Iran and the United States on that nuclear mission. And we know that in recent days, we've seen reports the United States has been trying to bolster Israel's air defences, moving anti-missile systems into the country here, just in case there's any retaliation from countries such as Iran.
We heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu that said that he and Steve Witkoff, Trump's assigned special envoy in the Middle East, are working on another hostage deal to get that done. They talked about neighboring countries that would accept Palestinians should they choose to go there. But you're right in that President Trump did not say if he would remove the tariffs. I see it as an indication that he wants to see where this hostage deal goes first. But Netanyahu certainly is making that first step by saying they are, quote, eliminating outright the trade deficit between the U.S. and Israel.
Aaron, what did the president say about the military budget as he and Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency work to cut down on federal costs? And what did the defense secretary say about the situation with the Houthi rebels in Yemen?
Yeah, primarily when it comes to the Houthis, Secretary Hegseth said that they would not stop, that they would be relentless, and wanted to send a message to Iran to no longer remotely support the Houthis. So that's what I heard from that.
Okay, yes, and we did hear the president talk about increasing the defense budget of our military. Aaron, stay with us if you can, because I want to bring in Courtney Keeley right now. Courtney is a Middle Eastern reporter and expert for us for CBS News. She joins us now in Studio 57. Tell me the significance of these direct talks Saturday between the United States and Iran.
Well, with all the noise at this semi-presser in the Oval Office, not an official presser, it was a real standout when President Trump said direct talks with Iran starting Sunday. And then somebody followed up with the question and said, did you say direct? Because there's a question of whether it was indirect or direct, and that's been going back and forth. And Trump said direct. Trump said high level. And before he said this, Netanyahu said he would like to see that Trump and Netanyahu, they had spoken about Iran. Netanyahu has always said they'd like to see what's a Libyan model, which means the complete elimination of a nuclear program. That would be what happened in Libya, but that's very unlikely to be seen in Iran. All the experts, and including news reports coming out of Iran, is that's very unlikely that Iran would dismantle their nuclear program. Experts have said that they're pretty much ready to use nuclear energy for a nuclear bomb. And they've already kind of held that. It's almost like not turning on the keys, not manufacturing one, or if they do, it's deep in the bunkers.